Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to be taking a journey inward to explore one of the most profound, universally shared mysteries of the human experience. We're talking about memory. Or, actually, we're talking about the gradual fading of it. You know, we so often think of our minds as these vast, highly organized libraries, right? Like everything we've ever experienced is meticulously cataloged and safely stored away in its own little file cabinet. But the reality? The reality is much more dynamic, a lot more fluid, and frankly, so much more fascinating than that. Today, we are going to dive deep into the neuroscience behind exactly how memories are formed, how they're stored, and ultimately, how they are dismantled. And along the way, we're going to uncover a really beautiful truth. The act of forgetting isn't some failure of your brain. It's actually, perhaps, its most brilliant, adaptive, and emotionally healing feature.
So, let me ask you something. Do you remember your very first day of school? Or maybe think about the exact moment you met someone who would go on to fundamentally change the course of your life. Take a second right now. Just reach back into the archives of your mind and try to really grab hold of that moment. Try to feel the air, hear the specific voices, and see the faces exactly as they were.
If you're like most of us, what you actually just pulled up wasn't a continuous, seamless movie scene. It's usually just a few fleeting images, right? Maybe a sudden, vivid spike of an emotion, a handful of scattered details. You might remember the bright color of a backpack, or the distinct temperature of the room, or maybe just the specific cadence of a voice. But the vast majority of that specific day has slowly decayed and disappeared just through the sheer passage of time. And it raises a genuinely intriguing, almost haunting question. If something was once so deeply important or vivid to us, why does the biological machinery of the brain actively allow it to slip away?
Okay, to really understand this, we first have to completely dismantle a pretty pervasive myth. Intuitively, we all kind of imagine memory as a perfect video recorder. And historically, this belief was so deeply entrenched that even our justice systems relied entirely on eyewitness testimony. We treated the human mind as this infallible hard drive where every experience is safely stored exactly as it happened, just waiting to be played back with perfect high-definition fidelity. But modern neuroscience, it tells a profoundly different story. Memory is actually a reconstructed story. When you recall a past event, your brain doesn't just casually open an old, unchangeable video file.
Instead, it goes through this absolutely fascinating biological process called memory reconstruction. Scientists refer to the physical representation of a memory as an engram, or a memory trace. So every single time you recall a memory, your brain literally has to actively gather scattered neural pieces of information from entirely different regions of your head. Your visual cortex provides the sights, your temporal lobe brings in the sounds, and your amygdala supplies the emotions. It physically reassembles the past event in real time. It's like a giant puzzle. And because of this active rebuilding process, memories are incredibly vulnerable to alteration. Details get lost, they shift, or sometimes they're even completely fabricated based on your current emotional state or new information you've learned since. The brain is an active editor. It's a storyteller, not a passive camera. And this realization, it leads us directly to a crucial neurological breakthrough. Forgetting is not a flaw in the brain, it is a feature. Seriously, we so often get frustrated with ourselves when we can't remember a name or recall a specific detail. We view it as a breakdown in our cognitive machinery, or, a sign of aging. But neuroscientists have discovered that active forgetting is a biologically necessary, highly sophisticated mechanism. It's an absolutely vital part of how a healthy, functional memory system operates.
To understand why, we really have to look at the sheer metabolic reality of what our brains process every single day. The human brain consumes about 20% of your body's total energy. 20%. Now, imagine if you permanently encoded and remembered the endless flood of data you encounter. Every single conversation you had 10 years ago, every random license plate you ever saw on your daily commute, every stranger's face that briefly passed you by on a crowded street. If your brain stored all of this perfectly, the metabolic cost would literally exhaust your biological resources. You wouldn't survive. And more importantly, your mind would just drown in an ocean of irrelevant noise, leaving you completely unable to focus on what actually matters right now.
Therefore, remembering and forgetting are partners. They're locked in this deeply intricate dance of neural efficiency. The brain has to constantly evaluate incoming data and actively decide what is most useful to preserve for your future survival, your navigation, and your well-being. And while it's doing that, it's aggressively pruning away the rest. One system simply would not function effectively without the balancing act of the other. They're quite literally two sides of the exact same cognitive coin.
Let's think about a really relatable comparison. The name of your elementary school versus exactly what you ate for lunch on a Tuesday, say 3 weeks ago. Why is one permanently etched into your mind while the other has completely, utterly vanished? Well, it comes down to a process called long-term potentiation. In neuroscience, there's this famous phrase, neurons that fire together, wire together. Information that we revisit frequently, or data that holds foundational value to our identity, it forms thicker, stronger physical neural pathways. The brain essentially looks at the school name and says, yep, we use this, keep the connection strong. But that Tuesday lunch, the brain deems it metabolically useless for your future, and the synapses literally detach and dissolve. Poof, gone.
Now you might be wondering, what about those memories that we don't necessarily revisit every day, but they still remain incredibly sharp and vivid? In psychology, these are often referred to as flashbulb memories. Strong emotional memories are formed when profound experiences, moments of great joy, deep sadness, paralyzing fear, or sudden love, trigger a massive release of powerful neurochemicals, things like adrenaline and dopamine. These chemicals essentially act like a physiological highlighter pen. They signal the brain's memory center, the hippocampus, to encode this specific moment deeply, securely, and rapidly. This is the exact science behind why you vividly remember where you were when you received shocking world news, or the precise, visceral feeling of a momentous life event.
Yet here's the catch. Even our strongest, most emotionally charged memories don't remain perfectly unchanged forever. A really beautiful way to visualize memory is to think of it like a path through a forest that gradually disappears when nobody walks it anymore. In our brains, this happens through an actual physical process called synaptic pruning. While we sleep, specialized immune cells in the brain called microglia actively scan our neural networks. If you have stopped revisiting a particular memory, these cells will essentially eat or clear away the unused synaptic connections. The less often you walk the mental path of that memory, the fainter the trail becomes, until the mental forest gradually reclaims it.
But here's where the science takes a deeply reflective and, I think, really comforting turn. Sometimes, forgetting is a gift. I want you to think deeply about the implications of perfect recall. If we remembered every profound disappointment, every sharp heartbreak, and every physically or emotionally agonizing moment with the exact same raw, perfect clarity as the day it happened, moving forward would be nearly impossible. We would be perpetually paralyzed, just anchored down by the unbearable emotional weight of our past.
This is exactly why evolutionary psychologists view forgetting through the lens of survival and adaptation. There is actually a documented phenomenon called the fading affect bias. This is where the brain intentionally dulls the emotional intensity of negative memories much faster than positive ones. It's brilliant. First, our brain slowly releases the sharpest, most painful details of grief or trauma to protect us. Second, this clearing of the mental cache creates the necessary cognitive and emotional space for new experiences. And third, this entire biological process is what allows us to adapt and evolve into new versions of ourselves. Forgetting isn't erasing who we were, it's actively clearing the path for who we are becoming. And this brings us to such a wonderfully grounding realization about the human experience. Faces fade, but feelings remain. Days fade, but lessons remain. See, your brain operates with both explicit memory, those are the facts and timelines you can consciously recall, and implicit memory, the deeper wisdom woven directly into your subconscious. A memory doesn't need to maintain high-definition, perfect detail to continue shaping your identity. There are people from your past whose specific facial features you might no longer be able to picture perfectly, yet your nervous system still remembers exactly how safe or inspired or loved they made you feel. The chronological events of a day might vanish, but the wisdom gained, that is permanently written into your character. So it turns out, memories are truly like footprints in the sand. Over time, the gentle, relentless waves of new experiences, combined with the biological reality of neural pruning, they wash over them. Slowly, those waves soften the edges, eventually erasing the original precise shape of the imprint. But the fact that the footprint is gone doesn't mean it never existed, and it certainly doesn't mean that the step you took didn't profoundly alter the direction of your life's journey. So, the very next time you notice a cherished memory beginning to lose its sharpest details, or you find yourself struggling to recall a moment you desperately wish you held on to, try not to view it with panic. It's not a sign that you are losing a piece of yourself. Perhaps it's simply your brain, in its infinite biological wisdom, gently reminding you the most important part has already stayed with you. The rest can be released. Because ultimately, what shapes us isn't some encyclopedia of everything we consciously remember. It is the quiet, foundational wisdom we carry from the things we gracefully let go. So, I'll leave you with this question. What is a memory that has faded over time, yet still left a massive, lasting impact on your life? Take a quiet moment today to just reflect on that. The human mind is an incredible, ever-changing landscape, and exploring how it filters, saves, and releases the story of our lives is honestly one of the most deeply rewarding journeys we can take. I really hope this look at the science of memory has brought you a sense of wonder and perhaps a little bit of comfort too. Keep wondering, keep exploring the deeply beautiful mysteries of your own mind, and I will catch you in the next explainer.